Welcome back, subscribers. I'm gonna lower my volume a little bit. So there's been something that's come to my attention recently. I'd say in the past week of like how intense uh, things are changing so quickly. So this has to do with like hidden costs and things that people aren't looking at. So this video is going to be talking about uh, generalized economics on a number of different facets and things to look for. So you as a consumer are being squeezed from a number of different directions. And I've had recently, I'm having to go through and kind of like revamp my outgo, if you will. So just from a personal basis, but a lot of my business elements kind of permeate into my personal. So I'm going to talk about those things, and the reason why that is because I'm basically an empty nester. I've had three children, and one is 20. Jillian's 20. She's gonna be 26 this year. My middle one, she's 23, and then my son is 19, and he's in school, but so he's not in the house. So basically, it's just like myself, and then I have my partner Kate, and she has her own house as well. So she's only in and out of my house for like every like couple of weeks. So basically, what's happened is like from this empty nest syndrome. It's like some people talk about this and things to kind of look forward to. Like if you're you have children, you want to get to this point where they become self-sufficient, and you can still have relationships with them if you've done a good job raising them. You'll have a good relationship with your children, but it's the outgo and like what it takes to run the house. All right, so it's like how utility costs, what your water consumption, electricity consumption, so on and so on and so on. Those things, insurance, car insurance, things like that. And when you actually like you put it on a spreadsheet and you kind of work it out, just in general. And I don't go nuts with it. I just kind of get like general idea of where I was and where I am. And I can, especially at year end, whenever tax season comes around, it's just like, it's a good time to kind of go back through and kind of clean some things out if you don't need it anymore. So like insurances and things like that, that you need to consolidate, and you're just changing your outgo. So I'm at that point right now. And I do this like periodically. Because I've had businesses, it's like you actually get prompted by your agent to say like, hey, you want to look at do you want to take a look at your file and see if there's something that you want to change in coverage, which then changes the amount of premium that you have to pay. I like how they call it a premium. So anyway, so I'm getting into this, and first thing's electricity. Now I'm in Raleigh, Durham, and my electricity costs on my own personal house were relatively cheap. It's about a 4,000 square foot house, and the house has spray foam in it, so it's like ultra efficient. It's twice as efficient as a normal house. So that means that I don't need as much air conditioning and heat by half of what everybody else does by the same relative size house. And monthly I get these little you get them with your utility bill, and it'll kind of show you a graph on how you're doing against another like house that's in the area. And i I also have like there's a hot tub and some other things that I use electricity for my business, and so on and so on. So my electricity costs are actually higher. If I was just living in the house, it would be uh, half the cost. So I have a number of costs that are kind of spilled into my personal side. So anyway, I start looking at this, and my last month's bill was like $380 for electricity, and I was like, gosh, that's really really high. And I start going back and looking at budgets, because the first thought in my mind is like, wow, if this is real, then solar actually becomes very like you'd actually get an ROI on solar, because I've already had pricing and things on solar, which intertwines with kind of the whole ESG thing and self-sufficiency and all this other business, where your energy consumption is going to be directly related to just your own person or your own space that you're in. So they're going to be really targeting consumers. So the new system, for what I understand, and all the research that we've done internally, is that kind of the IRS taxation system is going to be going away. There's already conversation in Florida about them getting rid of property taxation. Well, that sounds all well and good, but the question would be like, well, how would they tax you? All right, because it's like they need to have revenue in order to pay for roads and schools and bridges and all kinds of other things. So the question is like, okay, you're going to get rid of that. So what's the catch, right? You're going to get rid of the old and bring in the new. And is the new advantageous to somebody who is wealthy on the backside, or somebody that's gained a lot, has a number of assets? And from what we understand, that's absolutely not the case, that it's going to be a penalty, essentially, meaning like you'll end up paying more by the way the new system is going to be weighted, because they're going to be penalizing the consumers and your overall carbon footprint. The whole digital system runs on this carbon it's a carbon footprint weighting system. So basically, like, if I had 1,000 square foot house or a 4,000 square foot house, which one is more carbon and which one takes more energy to run? So they might stop taxing you on your house, but then they're going to start really taxing you on the consumption in order to run that said house. Does that make sense? And then maintenance and upkeep. The roof. A roof on 1,000 square foot house might cost you $8,000. Let's say it's 10. Let's say no, it's not going to be 10, but $8,000. And then a 4,000 square foot house is going to be like $25,000, maybe, right? Do you see? But the cost of the carbon for the materials is going to be higher. So what they're doing is, instead of you having like one single taxation number, you're going to be having less, but multiples. All right. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. All right. Instead of just one gashing wound. So they're getting rid of that single identifier, which in the old system was a little easier to manage. Like, you could say like, okay, I got this many apples in and this many apples out. Whereas the new system is kind of, it gives the illusion that it's less, but in all actuality, it ends up being more to the people that have more assets and more availability to things, because ultimately it is more technical carbon in usage for maintenance and upkeep, and just by owning it. Now in North Carolina, we have on automobiles, we have personal property tax that we have to pay on it. So that they take the value of the asset and then they tax you relative to it. So it's very similar to the property tax that you'd have on a house. Same type of thing. So if you have an electric vehicle, they do this because it's revenue to pay for roads and things like the bridges. So there's also a gas tax that we have, and the gas tax it's a road tax. And electric vehicles don't pay for fuel, so how do they get around that? Well, the electric vehicles pay a fee on the registration, which is like another $250 a year, which isn't really very much money considering. So they're definitely making it more advantageous to drive electric vehicles, because once you factor in the cost of the vehicle, the registration, so on, that it ends up being a lot more cost effective to be running, as far as a unit cost, like to get to where you need to get. So anyway, I'm going through all these numbers, and then the electricity thing. So my electric bill, basically where I'm at, it essentially doubled in 1 year. And I did some research, and Duke Energy, it's going to be going up by another, I think, not 100%. They're stating like 60% higher by 2030. Who knows? I mean, that those numbers are subjective, because it's just pulling from the algorithms or whatever. But so anyway, I'm looking at this and saying like, oh shit, like, in order to run my house bare minimum, just with me in it, with a refrigerator, a freezer, we have an electric well. I'm just looking at all the outgo of electricity, my consumption rate. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to have less. That's crazy. Now I start talking to Kate about this. I was like, hey, she's British. She's from England, and she came over here when she was 15 years old. So she knows the living in England. And I said, hey, I got this vibe that the United States, I've heard all her stories, and I said, I've got this vibe in the United States that the US is basically going to be going into like the same relative economy on the normal citizen side as what England went through after World War II. So after World War II, England was no longer uh, kind of the king because the Bretton Woods Agreement then basically made the decision. It did make the decision that the United States was going to be the primary currency. So I said the U.S. is going through the same thing. So now we have these kind of like currency wars that are happening behind the scenes, which are now establishing territorial um, use cases of those particular currencies. So you have BRICS, which is going to be from us, it's going to be East, and I guess East and West. If you look at China, and we're always the West. The U.S. is the West. So everything east of us is all going to be like BRICS. Everything south of us will be SUR, SUR in South America, and then the U.S. dollar will continue to keep reigning at least for Canada. I think it's going to be Canada. It'll be Canada, Greenland, Mexico, yeah, that territory will be dollars, and then maybe into Central America because they're already using it in like El Salvador, like the U.S. dollars used. Let me look this up really quick. Countries that use the U.S. dollar as currency in Central America. Let's see what it says. El Salvador, Panama, widespread acceptance through Central America, countries like Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, U.S. dollar. Right. Plus, you have the Virgin Islands. So basically, probably everything to the Panama Canal. So if you could, it's kind of like that line of delineation of dollars, and then it'll be the SUR on the lower side. So at any rate, where are you going with this, Danny? I'll be like, well, they're going to be squeezing from a number of different directions, and it's happening like right now. Okay, so you're seeing this really large increase in electricity, and they just bumped it up in the beginning of this year. We had like it was kind of hard to notice identify this because we had a really cold winter, so electricity rates were really high, and then it's like they kind of just like slipped it in behind the scenes, and increased these rates. They told everybody that they were going to be doing it, but what the impacts were going to be based on usage and things like that it's really significant. So yeah, I've talked to people that they're paying $750 a month for electricity, and they think it's just going to kind of like subside and go away and go back because their interpretation of it was the reason why this is happening is because the activity that's in the Middle East and oil. And I'm like, I don't say anything to him. I'm like, but he's got nothing to do with that. um, so what they do is the controllers of the system, to get you to go into a new system, what they'll do is they'll squeeze you on the old system to get you to be like, okay, uncle, I don't want to do that anymore, I'm going to use less. How do I get more efficient and use less? All right. And that's what they do. So they just raise the price and be like, okay, they'll just go away and they'll go over here. So I'm way out in front of this. So like I already have like solar quotes and things like that. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm like, if I'm paying $400 or $500 a month, then my payoff on my solar system would be 10 years, somewhere like that. It depends. It's going to be anywhere from probably $30,000 to $40,000 for installation costs. And then there's a whole scam behind solar as well too, because I'll do some videos on solar as well, and I can just do those publicly because it's just it's every which way you go with it. It's really hard to try to find a way to kind of game the system because the new system that they have on the citizen level is there isn't really a way to game it. Um, there's, for example, like when you did solar before, you could actually they would cut you a check. You put your system on your house and it was an advantage to kind of get you into it. Now they don't do that. The systems are only as what your usage is. So you use 10 kW, we're going to put 10 kW worth of panels on your house and that's it. And your house is just a soda, that's like its own little kingdom. That's it. There's no way to game it to make money doing it. All right. So all right, so you have that. You have electricity costs. Then you have insurance costs. And Kate's gone through this. We have her house right now. We're getting in the process of having the company take it over. So it'll end up being a rental property because she's gonna come move into this house, this property, full time. And the way that we're structuring it for taxation purposes is uh, it's called asset stripping. So basically, like my company's gonna own it, our company's gonna own it, and then we're just gonna pay back rent to the company, so that we can, either which way you're going to have to pay rent. And people say, well, that's crazy. Well, in order for me to tokenize my property, which I'm going to be doing through, it's a real world asset, so I can actually use the value of that property and put that money into another property, and so on and so on, and keep amplifying it. So anyway, Kate's got this property, and the insurance rates keep going up. So I only pay my insurance, or my taxation and my insurance comes out, but it stays very consistent because my deductibles are really, really high. If you have no fire in the house, suggestion would be, from what I've seen, is that increase your deductible. Just increase it. They have like really low deductibles, $1,500, $1,000. Mine's $10,000. So I'm like, well, if my house burns down, I'll gladly write you a check for 10,000 so I can get back 800. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not a big deal to me. But in the meantime, I'm not going to pay all this money out because I'm not at a high risk for my house, completely being destroyed. So, because it's just me in the house. If I had my 15-year-old son, and God only knows. So you have insurance costs are going up as well, significantly going up. And in some cases, they're double, triple. If you're out on the coast, they're going up significantly, and you've seen this. So now you're getting squeezed on electrical, you're getting squeezed on insurance, and it all is based upon the value of that said asset. So again, they're not going to be forcing taxations on the people that way. They're just going to be kind of converting you into how big is it and how much use is it, and you're going to pay this. All right. And it's going to be filtered. This new system, from what I've seen and all the research I've done, is it's not going to filter through the government anymore. It's going to be filtered and taxed through the companies that are that have the contracts on those said properties. So the insurance company is going to have to pay a carbon tax. They're going to just turn the tax over to you through the insurance. The electricity company is going to pay a carbon tax because this is going corporate. That's where it's starting. They have to pay a carbon tax and then they're offsetting, or diverting the liability to you because you're the one that's consuming the electricity. So then they turn it back over to you. So we're right at that point in time where it's like this gray area where it's like you're still paying property tax and you're also having to pay a high increase on utility costs, insurances, and things like that. So you have insurance costs, just fuel just to get around, gasoline, that's a whole nother one, transportation, energy. And we've had in North Carolina, we just went from $3.50 a gallon for unleaded, and now we're at, what is it? I think it's like 4 something. I don't really buy unleaded fuel because I run diesels. All my vehicles are diesels, pretty much. My weekend cars are gas, and I don't really fill them up very often. But like my diesel costs have gone up. We're paying now $5, and I saw 79 cents yesterday. So that's increased by $2.25. So that was an increase. I think I did the numbers. It was like 60% increase in cost. So, and then where does that trickle down to the consumer? Well, everything that's brought to your table is brought by diesel fuel. Everything that you put on your back is diesel fuel. Maybe you've got Amazon people running around, delivery vans that are ultimately delivering with electric, which is cheaper, which is not really cheaper because Duke is charging more money for electricity unless the hub that it's coming out of has solar, which then costs. Do you see what I mean? Like, no matter what you go with it, whatever direction, I'll just put solar panels on the house, be like, or on the building, on my commercial building, and I'll just run these electric vehicles, and be like, well, the electric vehicle is the costs are. A normal vehicle might be 50,000. The electrics are 70,000 for delivery. I just looked it up yesterday. So either which way, it's a shell game. You're like, either which way you basically lose. It's a higher increased cost. So at any rate, even to get the goods to the Amazon distribution house, it's running on diesel fuel because of the over the road trucks, the big heavy trucks that are getting 3-4 miles a gallon in diesel, and so ultimately, so who pays for that? Well, the shipping cost goes up, and then when the shipping cost goes up, then they incrementally just slowly, like I said, death by a thousand cuts. They bleed it into every one of the products that's on that said truck, and then the consumer then buys it. And you can see how this is. It's just like you don't really notice it as much. And so you have it. So basically, as soon as you get up in the morning, every ounce of energy that's going into whatever it is for you before next time, whenever you lay your head down at night, is going to be like a slow bleeding on every facet of everything. You go and get Starbucks, it's now going to be $6, it'll be $7, to get the beans there from South America, and so on and so on, all these shipping costs. So again, that's where this consolidation of these territories is super important, because they're going to be like, well, what's the solution to the energy crisis? Well, we're not going to be buying goods from China anymore. We're going to have to set up distribution in let's do Central America. That's what the next plan is anyway. So you have to create a crisis, and then some kind of a solution in order to spur growth into a new territory. And it will all go through Washington, and they'll set, it's all been set up. This is already done deal. That Central America is like the new manufacturing hub for the Americas. Okay, it's going to be the central, which again geographically it's very simple. So centrally, it will then be able to distribute all the way up to Canada, and then all the way down to the tip of Chile and Argentina, and that's it. That's the main plan. But we're talking, it's going to be probably, I think, 2030. It's going to be established by 2030, but it's going to take till about 2050 to be really set into place, and how the whole thing is really humming. Like if you could just kind of like teleport into the future, then you'd see this whole thing running efficiently by that time. But the problem is, in order to get there, you're going to have to disassemble the old one based on chaos, because people are going to be like, well, I always call my supplier, and they get distribution from China, and the shipping container comes over, and it takes 2 weeks to get delivered, and and then this is the price. Well, that's going to all change. So people are going to be seeking cheaper alternatives, which are going to be creating manufacturing and such in a more centralized area, which is limiting the amount of shipping cost, which is going to be like, again, it's just a big scam. It's a scam to get people to move and support the newer systems that are coming in, to gain more of a centralization of shipping and creational. It's already been colonized, but development south of the border. Okay, and that's what really the main driver is. So anyway, I've rambled long enough. Anyway, where this is going is, so the train's already wrecked. What I'm saying is, like, this is going to be really significantly impacting everyone, and a lot of people don't really budget and pay really close attention on a personal side of how much outgo is happening, other than their bank account is less and less and less and less and less every month. And then they keep watching the news thinking that things are going to get better, things are going to get better, things are going to get better, and to a point where you get squeezed, and you just can't run your life the way that you always used to run it. So then you'll just start, uh, decreasing your outcome, and that's going to continue to keep happening. So it's April the 1st today, 2026. That's going to continue on, and it's going to get systemically. So that'll be the end of the quarter. Into the next quarter, we're going to be seeing significant revenue losses by companies, and then that's where the markets are going to react to that. So what we're looking at is somewhere around August, I think, is going to be. They like to do it around the harvest time. It's like it's a ritual that's always done in the markets. So August, September, somewhere in that range is going to be the harvest period of harvesting negative emotional energy, loosh. So that would be the time to be kind of looking for major market disruptions. And I'm looking at there. I've heard people talking 25% reduction. When I look at the charts, I'm looking at I this is not financial advice in any stretch. But what I'm looking at is, let me look at SPX. Let me measure this really quick. Yeah. Okay. 26%, 20 to say 25% reduction of the final element. So you're probably going to get even a harder crash, which might go as low as 50% reduction in overall value inside of the indexes. And inside the indexes are, the blue chip, Fortune 500 companies. They're really good ones, the Amazons, Alphabet, Apple, so on and so on. And people don't know this, that a lot of these really large corporations are the majority of what the market saturation, the value of the market is. The rest of them are really not in really good shape. Banks are going to be everything is going to be affected by this. So that means your 401k, your retirement, so on and so on. And so I've already gone into cash. I have nothing in equities and stock. I have investments in property and like hard assets and cash. And people say like, well, cash is going to go away, and be like, it's not going away. US dollar is not going away. I can't see that foreseeing because of all the structure that's already been created on the backside, because of the stablecoin bill, the Genius Act. It's a staple moving forward. The value of it is actually going to be reinforced because of the Stablecoin Act. So that's another topic that I can talk about later. But anyway, you're looking at anywhere from probably 25 to 50% reduction. Like when I say 50% reduction, that's going to be like a couple of days that it just really hemorrhages, and real shock to the system. It'll be all over the news and all this other business, and it'll be its own crisis, and they're gonna come up with some way, and they'll blame it on something. It's not gonna be Wall Street. I don't know what they're gonna blame it on. Maybe a war. They've got so many different irons in the fire to blame it on. It doesn't really matter. The thing to focus on is that whenever this reset actually happens in the markets, because the resets already happen electronically through Google and Microsoft and your credit cards and the telephones and all that stuff. So they have all the tracking and all the identification. So now all they need to do is just rug pull and decompress the money out of the system. And then that said money will then funnel back into companies that are going to be in the news space moving forward. So out of this crash, you're going to see lots of companies, lots of things go away. Auto manufacturers that have been around for a long time, just old legacy businesses that have pension funds and things like that. And they do this rug pulling basically just to get rid of that, just to not take care of their people anymore. It's like, they're not behind the scenes, like setting this all up saying like, well, we're just going to close the company but they can't afford it. They're not directing it at those people. They're just, like my grandfather worked for GM, and he was getting his pension beyond the value of what he worked. Like he was making he was basically a liability in the pension fund because of the way it was set up, because he lived longer than what was uh uh you know slated for whenever he originally had started working for the company. So there's a lot of that activity that's going on. So they have to clean all that up. And the way they clean it up is they just wreck it. And then the companies go out of business. And then all those pension funds, retirements, all that stuff goes away. And the people are left holding the bag and they're like, well, what am I going to do? And so those of the people that are in that type of situation, there will be from what we understand, they've already rolled this out as universal basic income. So there'll be basically like it's not welfare, but it's some other type of system. I don't really, I know pieces and parts of it, but I don't really know how they're going to lay that out for people that are going to be like in need, that we're leaning on pensions and things like that to live. So senior citizens and things like that will still be taken care of. But yeah, like it's going to be major disruptions. It's going to be like really, really ugly. But there's also a way to kind of capitalize on this, where if you're moving some of your funds into cash positions. The question is like, are you able to move it into something else that has value on the backside? And then like, what would I put it into on the backside? Because it's going to be a shit show. And that concern is like, well, which company do I pick? Which one is dangerous? And I've already given guidelines on things to look for in these companies that are going to make it through into the new system. So it's like their ESG reports and things like that. Are they playing the new rules? Are they playing with the new rules yet? And I've already done videos on this, and comment and or reach out and just let's create some dialogue on this, because it's going to be affecting, like I said, everybody. So exciting times for sure. We are. I'm in a. I always feel like I'm not doing enough on my side, but by talking to other people, just by knowing about this, that I've already set myself up basically the best way possible, and then the way that I end up distributing my funds after this happens will be it's a crapshoot. But again, like, I've done my research on companies that are slated to be making it into the new system, like the Googles and Apple and Microsoft and so on, Nvidia. Um, but yeah. So anyway, that's basically where we're at. So you're getting a constricted reduction across the board on all these different items that's happening to you. That's significantly decreasing your monthly outgo, or it's increasing your monthly outgo, and decreasing your cash reserves. And it's just going to get to a breaking point, and it's really, really, really close. So anyway, there'll be more to come. It's just something that just happened, this past weekend, when I was just kind of running through some numbers and stuff for taxation. So just things to look out for. More to come. Cheers.